The White House today pulled off quite a historic event. In fact, Donald Trump pulled off this historic phenomenon by huddling every single white supremacist, warmonger, and genocidal maniac under one roof. They included Keir Starmer from the UK, Emmanuel Macron from France, Friedrich Merz from Germany, Giorgia Meloni from Italy, and Ursula von der Leyen from the European Union. Also joining this notorious group of racists were Vladimir Zelenskyy from Ukraine. The stated objective was to finalize a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Mind you, today's get-together took place just 2 days after Trump welcomed his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Alaska for summit-level talks. Two things stood out for me after today's jumbo circus at the White House. First was a stunning confession by these white supremacists from both sides of the Atlantic that they were indeed racists and bigots. This became obvious on several occasions, including when Zelenskyy thanked Trump and his wife Melania for writing a special letter on the plight of Ukrainian children.
If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you. And using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, abducted children, and my wife, she, First Lady of Ukraine, she gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want it.
Yeah.
Then this horrible woman from the EU, von der Leyen, shared this ugly joke when she claimed to care about children's safety since she herself was a mother and a grandmother.
But I want to thank you also that you mentioned the thousands of Ukrainian children that have been abducted. And as a mother and grandmother, every single child has to go back to its family. This should be one of our main priorities also in these negotiations, to make sure that the children come back to Ukraine to their families.
Clearly, her support for the genocidal regime of Israel all through the Gaza conflict has shown the world what kind of horrible mother and grandmother she may be at home. According to the UNICEF, the Russia-Ukraine conflict has seen the deaths of around 700 children in the last 3.5 years, or 1,277 days since the war started. In contrast, Israeli terrorists have murdered more than 30,000 children in the last 660 days since war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu launched his genocidal campaign in Gaza. But Melania Trump's heart bleeds for Ukrainian children, and she even writes a desperate letter for them. Von der Leyen can't hide her pain for Ukrainian children either, and even invokes a motherhood and grandmotherhood. But these women and their fellow white supremacists occupying power in the US and Europe haven't been moved by the plight of children in Gaza. Far from being moved, they have continued to arm Israel with more deadly weapons to slaughter more children. These European and American politicians have been so depraved and sadist that they have zero shame in even publicly displaying their racism and bigotry. Look, children are children, whether they are white Ukrainians or Russian or Arab Palestinians. Only a genocidal maniac, bereft of any morality, would sponsor the murder of Palestinian children but highlight the victimhood of Ukrainians. You can't make a distinction between the killings of children from Europe and Gaza. If you are a human, your heart should bleed for every single child. Period. Today's developments also highlighted Trump's weakness in front of Putin. He may blabber as much as he pleases, but the reality is that he simply can't commit to a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine because he knows too well that nothing is finalized until Putin says yes to it. And no power in the world is capable of making Putin change his mind against his desire. So to hide his weakness, Trump came up with a new excuse, claiming that he didn't believe in ceasefires.
I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept. I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
He thinks we are fools, and we don't remember just how desperately he was begging for a ceasefire with the Houthis and Iranians only a few months ago. Many of Trump's European guests asked him to announce a ceasefire until a permanent peace deal with Ukraine and Russia was achieved.
I think this is extremely helpful that we are meeting and hearing that the two of you are having such a good meeting today here in Washington. The next steps ahead are the more complicated ones now. The path is open. You opened it last Friday. But now the way is open for complicated negotiations. And to be honest, we all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on. I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that, and let's try to put pressure on Russia, because the credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today are depending on at least a ceasefire from the beginning of the serious negotiations from next step on. So I would like to emphasize this aspect and would like to see a ceasefire from the next meeting, which should be a trilateral meeting wherever it takes place.
Well, we're going to let the president go over and talk to the president, and we'll see how that works out, and if we can do that. I will say, and again I say it, in the 6 wars that I've settled, I haven't had a ceasefire.
But Trump simply couldn't commit to such a scenario. It was clear that he realized his limitations vis-a-vis Putin. He tried to blame the media and his critics, saying that whatever he does, he would never be talked about in a positive light.
It's an amazing phenomenon. I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say, I made a bad deal. The level of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people up here. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But, in solving all of these wars, they don't even write about it. I saw major wars. I saw wars that have been going on for 31, 35, and 37, and a couple of quicker ones. One that was going to go into a full-blown deal very quickly. What the one I'm talking about, it was a big one. But they don't even write about that. No matter what I do, no matter what, and this is not anything to do with you. It's probably to your advantage in a certain way. But no matter what I do, no matter what deal I make, from my standpoint, you'll come out good. Maybe President Putin will come out good. But they'll say, Trump was absolutely horrible. It's just that, and I've lived with that for a long time. I've lived with it since just before the first election. I used to get great publicity. Now I get the worst publicity anyone's ever gotten in office, but I won in a landslide, so that people understand. They're the only ones that count, ultimately.
So the American and European racist warmongers can indulge in any amount of theatrics, wanting to be seen as peacemakers. They only ended up exposing themselves further today. We have an even better understanding about their support for the genocide of children and babies in Gaza and the reasons behind it. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.